This is the Louie T Network.
Who else could it be? Me, your man, Louie T. Welcome to the lockdown coverage, week number 12 in the National Football League. Seattle Seahawks taking on the San Francisco 49ers. NFC West family business. You know how the family do it. And Seahawks have been having a little bit of trouble lately with these 49ers. If you remember, earlier in the season, these two teams met in Seattle. Wasn't a pretty game for the Seahawks, barely pulling that one out in the later stages of that ball game. Remember, they were down 9-3 before Russell Wilson pulling a little bit of magic out of his hat with a scramble and extension of a play and finding P. Rich in the corner of the end zone for a touchdown that would give them a 10-9 victory, I believe, is what that thing ended up. Maybe 12-9. I think they were down 6-9, something along those lines before the touchdown. In any event, wasn't pretty, but it was gritty and a dub. And the beginning of this game started out eerily similar. Not a lot of points. Seahawks didn't get on the scoreboard until the early stages of the second quarter. Into the third quarter, the mid stages of the third quarter, this score was 7-6. Seattle was up 7-6. So the 49ers were hanging tough. And they made this thing a ball game until about the midpoint of the third quarter when the Seahawks started to pull away, and they would score 17 unanswered points, pull away 24-6, and 49ers would score a garbage time touchdown as time expired to make it 24-13, which was your final score. So not the prettiest, most aesthetically pleasing victory by the Seattle Seahawks, but again, a win's a win's a win in the National Football League, and you'll take it any way you can get it. And for a team with a ton of injuries, trying to figure some things out, and right in the dead heat of a divisional race, you'll take any single win you can get, especially ones in the division like this one against San Francisco. They're never easy when they're in the division, no matter what the record of the team you're playing. If they're in the division, they're normally tough and hard to come by. And so this was a game 49ers team for much of the ball game, but the Seahawks were able to impose their will and get away from them and win this football game 24-13. We'll get into the particulars here in a second, but first, if you haven't already done so, subscribe to the Louie T Network for more great content in 2017 and beyond. We're changing the game over here. I want you to help us do that by simply hitting that subscribe button and becoming a member of the Louie T Network. I've got a number of social media platforms that you need to be a part of. There's Twitter, there's Instagram, there's Facebook, and of course there's YouTube. Turn on those notifications so you know when I'm going live talking about your favorite team so you can chime in on the discussion. All the links to those social media platforms down in the description below this and every single video that I do, along with how you can donate to the Louie T Network. Those two links you see in front of you for Patreon and PayPal are ways to donate to the Louie T Network. And so those two links that you saw just now on the screen down below in the description, along with a link to a video that shows you what you can get in terms of exclusive content via Patreon if you were to donate. And so with that being said, let's jump into this breakdown and talk about how the Seattle Seahawks were victorious 24-13 over the San Francisco 49ers, getting their record to 7-4 on the season with the win and remaining a game behind the Los Angeles Rams in the NFC West division. Like I said, slow start for the Seattle Seahawks, but we saw a lot of Eddie Lacy in this game. J.D. McKissick, I think that might be the two-headed monster in the backfield moving forward. You've been searching for two guys to get it done, and really you didn't care who the guy was in the backfield that got it done. You just were looking for someone to take a little bit of the pressure off of Russell Wilson out of that backfield. And maybe if Eddie Lacy can stay healthy, he along with J.D. McKissick, because I think they are the perfect complements to each other. One is a hammer, a guy that isn't going to outrun anyone, but he's going to get the tough yards. And then McKissick is the slasher in and out, a guy that can work the edges and get outside. And you saw him on a play to the outside that was beautifully executed, where you got Dwayne Brown out on the edge was able to have him seal off a defender. McKissick was able to hit it quickly on the outside all the way down to about the 2-yard line, which set up a touchdown for Seattle. So you can see the contrast between the two backs, and I think they kind of have a good disparity between their two talents and what they bring to the table. So I like the little that I saw of, I told you I want to see more of J.D. McKissick, and I think the Seahawks understand that he's a difference maker for them as a pass catcher out of the backfield and a guy that can tote the rock. So I think with Eddie Lacy coming in there and starting to look more like the guy that you were hoping he would be, not to say that he's a game changer, but he's just a guy that can eat up carries, wear down a defense, and then you hit him with McKissick and boom, and he can hit him for some big yards. I think that could be a little bit of a combo going forward that may be able to help take some of the pressure off of Russell Wilson. That being said, P. Rich was one of the bigger receivers in this game. Not a lot from Doug Baldwin and not a lot from Jimmy Graham, although he did have a touchdown grab in this game. And he's been pretty prolific in the red zone here of late. I think this is about his 3rd or 4th straight game with a touchdown grab. So Jimmy Graham's starting to really become a huge part of the offense in the red zone, which is where he's supposed to do his damage. Remember, when he was in New Orleans, every year it was 10, 11, 12, 13 touchdown grabs for Jimmy Graham. This is where he's supposed to be dynamic in the red zone. This is where he's supposed to be a huge weapon, and they're starting to realize that, and they're getting him the football, and he's making plays in the end zone. So another touchdown grab for him. The tight ends were huge in this game. Nick Van Nett made some plays, including a touchdown grab, and he scored the first touchdown of the game for Seattle. So if they can start getting these tight ends involved, because I told you, Russell Wilson does a really good job of getting the football to the tight ends. If they can start getting no Luke Wilson, so Van Nett had to step up, and I like Nick Van Nett coming out of Ohio State, and I think he can help. Even when Luke Wilson comes back, I'd like to see them put some 3 tight end sets on the field and get these guys out there moving around, and I think you can win some matchups with Van Nett. He's an athletically gifted tight end. Of course, Jimmy Graham, and then Luke Wilson is a guy that can also move and catch the football. So I'd like to see them get the tight ends more involved like they did in this game. And then off of that, you get P. Rich and you get the Angry Bird, Doug Baldwin involved. And all of a sudden now Tyler Lockett becomes a weapon out there. And there's enough stuff to go around. There's enough stuff out there for this Seahawks offense to function at a high level if they get everything going right. But the first thing that they have to figure out is the run game. They can't beat good teams without having some semblance of a run game. It doesn't have to be dynamic. It just has to be a semblance of a run game so that Russell Wilson doesn't have to win the game on his own. They can't be rushing for 0.5 yards per carry. I mean, that's not going to get it done. They're not going to win games like that. They're going to have to find some semblance of a run game like they did in this game. And again, it wasn't the prettiest run game, and it wasn't the most effective run game, but there was a semblance of a run game, which kept the 49ers off balance, which allowed Russell Wilson to get out of the pocket, make some plays down the field. So there is play action fake when you do run the football, whether it's effective or not. If you continue to run the football, there is play action fake opportunities off of the run. And that's something that Seattle needs desperately in their offense. And you saw a little bit of that in this game. Defensively, they absolutely destroyed C.J. Beathard. This is the tight, and again, the 49ers offensive line isn't the greatest in the world. C.J. Beathard isn't the greatest in the world, granted. But this is the type of effort they're going to need moving forward from this defensive front. They were all over C.J. Beathard's ass. I mean, he took a pounding in this game. It was no surprise that he didn't finish this game. They tore him a new asshole in this game. Every single play. Poor C.J. Beathard was getting up, rearranging his helmet, fixing his shoulder pads, getting up, dusting himself off. He took a beating in this game, and it was only fitting that he did not finish, and Jimmy Garoppolo had to come in relief, albeit for 2 plays. Nonetheless, C.J. Beathard was obliterated in this game, and that's a testament to this group up front for Seattle that is going to have to be the catalyst defensively. With the Legion of Boom being as banged up as it is, they're going to have to step up front, get pressure on quarterbacks so that they don't have time to take advantage of Jeremy Lane or Byron Maxwell or whomever is out at the cornerback position. They're going to need to get pressure on the quarterback to take pressure off of that secondary, and they did that in this game. And even though they got to C.J. Beathard a ton, he was still able to get to Marquise Goodwin and get the football out. And so they're going to have to be a very aggressive group of fun. Man, do I love me some of Bobby Wagner, man. That guy is a stud. The interception he had in this game was ridiculous. And he just continues to be a special inside linebacker in this league. To me, one of the best. When you start reeling off the names, and I continue to say this, I'm going to continue to say it. When you start reeling off the names, if he's not first and you want to go with Kuechly first, fine. He better be the next name off your tongue, along with Shazier. Okay, those to me are the top 3 linebackers inside in this league. They're just phenomenal. And Wagner, to me, every week shows up for the Seattle Seahawks defense. He's available, unlike Sean Lee, who's a great linebacker in this league, but he's never healthy. He's available, and he is productive every single week he's around the football, making big plays for this Seattle Seahawks football team. And it was his interception that led to the first points of the game for the Seahawks. So Bobby Wagner is a stud. And I think that guy is the linchpin of this defense, along with Earl Thomas. To me, those are the 2 that make this defense go. And as long as those 2 are healthy, you got a shot in Seattle. And the defense was solid in this game, holding the 49ers to 6 points until the very end of the game when Garoppolo came in and threw the touchdown and literally mop-up time with waning seconds of the game. So this is a really good defensive effort by this Seattle Seahawks defense, containing the run, not giving up anything major, no big plays, no busted plays like you saw against Atlanta. No big plays given up. The 49ers weren't able to do anything, and they were able to pretty much keep them at bay. And the offense was able to score some points and run away and hide in this game, 24-6. And the final score ended up 24-13. Quickly for the 49ers, I thought it was a great start to the game. You gave yourself a chance with the interception by Reed on the first play of the game. I thought that was a great job of him reading the eyes of Russell Wilson. Great coverage to fall underneath that corner route. And the ball was slightly thrown inside, but still, Reed got his head around, located ball, and was able to make a play on it, get his feet down in bounds. Gorgeous play. I thought they did a good job of stopping the run, getting to Russell Wilson. Early on, like I said, the Seahawks didn't score their first points of the game until second quarter. So this defense running around, making plays early on, but the offense wasn't sustaining itself. And you keep putting that defense on the field over and over again, and bad things are going to happen. And eventually the dam broke, and then you saw the Seahawks take advantage in the second half of this game as they end up running away and hiding. But I thought the defense gave you – there's talent defensively with this San Francisco 49ers football team, and they're going to get better. And there is a silver lining in this cloud of 1-10, and that's you've got a new coaching staff, you've got a new organizational direction, you've got a lot of young, talented football players, and I think you may have a quarterback in Jimmy Garoppolo. And we'll see what happens with the injury to C.J. Beathard, and if that prompts them to put in Jimmy Garoppolo a little bit sooner than maybe they were anticipating. I don't want to rush him. I was one of the people that was saying, hey, put Jimmy in after the bye week, put Jimmy in after the bye week. What I don't want to do is stick him out there prematurely when he's not ready, when he doesn't have a great grasp of the playbook and an understanding of what they want him to do. He goes out there, he plays poorly, he gets hit and beat up because he does have an injury history. Remember, when he was starting for Tom Brady, he got banged up and missed 2 games of the 4 that Tom Brady was suspended for. So remember, Jacoby Brissett had to come in and play 2 of those games, won a game, and then the other game he got shut out against the Texans. So I don't want, or the Bills, I don't want Jimmy G to come in, get banged up, because C.J. Beathard took an ass whooping in this game. I don't want him to come in, get beat up, lose confidence, and all of a sudden he's damaged goods. If they didn't play him after the bye, that means they feel like he's not ready yet, and they don't want to throw him to the wolves. I'd hate to see him go out there because of a C.J. Beathard injury. So hopefully C.J. Beathard's okay, because if he's not, the Jimmy G show will begin next week on the road, which it wouldn't be the worst team in the world to have it start against, the Chicago Bears on the road. They're struggling right now, And if there's a team that you could probably beat, it's the Chicago Bears, even though it's on the road. So we'll see what happens there. But in this game, you just weren't able to make enough plays to keep it close long enough into the second half. 7-6, you got it right where you wanted it, and then your defense wasn't able to make the stops necessary, which they had done in the first half. They weren't able to do it in the second half to keep this game close, as Seattle was eventually able to run away with this game. 24-13 ended up being your final. Seahawks go to 7-4, stay one game behind, and that's all they have to do is stay within striking range of the Rams. I still think they're going to win this division. They've got some toughies coming up, though. You know, for as much as I think they can win this division, they've still got Philadelphia. Both teams have Philadelphia. So, and if I'm not mistaken, both teams have Philadelphia at home. So, there's no excuses there. You know, both teams have Philly at home, have an opportunity to get them at the crib. But both teams have Philly. Both teams, if I'm not mistaken, obviously each team plays. They play each other once in Seattle, which is why I think you're going to win the division, because I think you're going to sweep the Rams. But I think Seattle might have the tougher of the two in terms of the remaining schedule. So, because I think they still have Jacksonville on that schedule as well. And that's a defense that can get after Russell Wilson and make life miserable for him and potentially force some turnovers and keep it a low-scoring game, which favors Jacksonville. So I'll be eager to see how this season finishes up for the Seattle Seahawks. They've got some toughies, but this is where your championship medal gets tested. You've been here before. The Rams haven't. You're supposed to be the one that takes the step that the Rams aren't capable of taking because they haven't been here before. So I'm anxious to see if the Seahawks rise to the occasion. When things get tough, they show their championship medal and find a way to win this division. We're going to see. I'm fascinated with this division here and the NFC South because these are the two most competitive divisions in all of football. That AFC West division is a joke. This right here in the NFC South are the real deal. And so I'm anxious to see how the end of the season plays out for both of those divisions in the NFC. So let's get to any comments that may be out there after this game. Let's see what we got. Vincent Coe says, Jimmy Garoppolo did what C.J. Beathard couldn't do all game in just 10 seconds, throw a touchdown. Yeah, I mean, they were already down there, though. So, you know, look, CJ took an ass whooping so Jimmy didn't have to. So, shout out to C.J. Beathard for gutting it out for as long as he could. Man, he got his ass torn up. Vincent Coe says, much needed win from my Hawks, but the remaining schedule for the Seahawks looking ugly. It's a toughie. But if you want to make the playoffs, if you want respect, these are the types of games and stretches of games where your championship medal is tested. And I expect a veteran, tested team like the Seahawks to rise to the occasion here and find a way to get it done. Vincent Coe says, I know this is probably not a realistic question for now, but do you think Shaq Griffin can develop to be a player like Sherman for the secondary? I absolutely do. It's not a premature question. Yeah, he's a rookie, and I like his talents. The one thing I will say, though, he's got to stay healthy. He's been in and out of the lineup of late, you know, yo-yoing in and out due to some injuries. One thing that Dick Sherman has always been able to do up until now is stay healthy. And that's the biggest ability, is to be available. Availability is the biggest ability. And the guy's got the talent that a lot of people didn't see coming out of Central Florida. This guy's long. He's got speed. He locates the football. I like Shaq Griffin's skill set. And he's got everything you're looking for to be a new big-time member of the Legion of Boom and keep that legacy alive as some of these players that have founded the Legion of Boom start to wane and get older. He's a guy that I think can help carry along that legacy for a little while longer, but he's got to stay healthy. But he's got all the tools. And I told you about a month ago, 3 weeks ago, that I really like this kid. And I think he's got the world of potential. So that's not a premature question. I think he's a guy that can get it done if he stays healthy. Archangel says, Russell Wilson scares me like Aaron Rodgers, especially in the playoffs, even with no O-line and no run game. He's one of the few quarterbacks that even without, like you mentioned, an offensive line or an adequate run game can still hurt you. But even he has his limitations. And the defense isn't as dominant as it once was. So it'd be nice if they could take a little bit of the pressure off of him by running it a little bit and protecting him a little bit better up front. So the biggest acquisition has to be Dwayne Brown, and he's playing well. If they can keep him healthy, that'll go a long way in helping them down the stretch. Archangel says, nobody wants to travel to Seattle in the playoffs. Don't look now, but the Hawks are on your ass, Rams. They're right there. They've always been there. They've always been that one game back. And again, these coming weeks going to be tough. We talked about how tough the Rams schedule is. Seahawks don't have a cupcake schedule either. So, like I said, this is going to be this is the makings of a great divisional race down the stretch here in the NFC West. Buffalo pregame says, do you think the Seahawks make the playoffs? NFC is tight. I do. I've said it a number of times. I expect them to win this division. I'm not moving off of that spot. I love the Rams. I love Sean McVay. You know, that's my guy. But I just think it's so tough for them, even though they've defied all the odds to this point at 8-3 and winning all these games, and they continue to play outstanding football. They've never been here before. They don't know what this is like. They are in a great position, but I just don't know if they have it in them to find a way to thwart off the Seattle Seahawks, who know what it's like and know what it takes to find a way to gut out some tough wins down the stretch and win a division against all odds. I still think Seattle's got one more divisional run in them, and then after this one, they may have to bow out and hand over the throne to the young boys who are ready to take over. But I think they've got one more year where they're like, hey, don't forget about us. Buffalo pregame says, do you have any thoughts on the Niners drafting a quarterback next year? None. Not a single thought on that right now because I want to see what Jimmy G is all about. Cloud says, do you think they'll franchise tag Jimmy G to get a year to see him play? I'm not sure. I'm not sure if they will or not because that's a lot of money to pay a quarterback. Franchise tag for a QB is a ton of money. I think they're going to try to work out a deal with him. If they can't, you know, and if they do get a long-term deal with him, it'll have exit ramps and some parameters that will allow the 49ers to get out if he's not the guy that they think he is. But if I'm Jimmy Garoppolo, I'll sign a 2-year deal with the 49ers. I'll tell my agent, look, I'll sign a short 2-year deal with these guys so that it'll be a cap-friendly deal for them so they're not paying me, you know, $25 million a year, whatever this franchise tag. I think franchise tag last year for Kirk Cousins or 2 years ago was like basically $20 million. So you're probably looking at anywhere with the deals of Derek Carr and Matthew Stafford. You're probably looking at every bit of $22 million for a franchise tag right about now. If I'm Jimmy Garoppolo, I'm like, I'll tell my agent, look, I'll sign a 2-year, you know, $40 million deal, a 2-year, $36 million deal with all of it guaranteed or a vast majority of it guaranteed, you know, and play under that. And if I'm good, we can renegotiate the deal next year, rip it up, go long term. If you don't like what you see, you can get out of the deal after the first year, or you'll just stick around for another. I'll stick around for both years of the contract. And we'll figure out this thing after it's all done. And if you don't like what you see, you move on. I mean, if I'm Jimmy G, that's what I'm looking to do. A short-term, big contract that gets me paid, but also allows the 49ers to get a chance to see what they need to see. But we'll find out what happens. FBG Tony says, who are your 6 NFC playoff teams? I think right now it's hard to say. I think that I can give you 5 teams right now that I think are going to make it. All right, so Philadelphia, definitely. Minnesota, definitely. New Orleans is getting in. I believe New Orleans is getting in. Even though I told you, put it this way. I'm gonna say this. I don't want to definitely anybody in the South. put it this way. Philadelphia, Minnesota, any 2 out of the 3 in the South you like. I don't care. You pick. Any 2 out of the 3. You know, go pick a combo of Saints and Falcons, Saints and Panthers, Panthers and Falcons. I don't care. You pick 2 out of those 3. But 2 out of those 3 are getting in. All 3 aren't getting in. I don't think. I still don't think all 3 of those teams are getting in. And then I think both teams in the West are getting in. I think there's a distinct possibility that both teams in the West get in. Now, if I had to pick one, I'd say the Rams didn't get in. If you're telling me one team drops out of the playoffs and doesn't make it all together, as crazy as this sounds, they're already at 8 wins. It'd have to be the Rams for me. And that would mean they would finish up the season 2-3, which I don't see happening. So I'm thinking the 6 teams that are in right now could possibly be the 6 teams that get in. Don't sleep on Green Bay, though. Don't fall the hell asleep on the Green Bay Packers. They're not out of it yet either. And with Cleveland and Tampa coming up, and then Aaron Rodgers potentially coming back for the final 3, they could get to 10 wins and find a way to sneak in the back door of the playoffs. Anything's possible. So, hard for me to say. Archangel says, I heard Freeney was let go by Seattle, but Lou, why don't they need don't they need help defensively? Yeah, they let him go. I don't know why. I was having a conversation with somebody the other day about Freeney being let go and why that happened. I don't know the answer to that because they definitely need the help. My one answer to him being released is that they needed the roster spot. They've had so many injuries up along the offensive line and at various positions, at the cornerback position and things of that nature that when some guys get healthy and start coming back, you got to remember, Dwight Freeney's like, 36 years old, 35, 36 years old, 37, something like that. You're not cutting a young guy that you think has potential to keep Dwight Freeney on your roster. That's not what you do. You go out and no one's fighting you over Dwight Freeney. If you need to go back and get him later, he'll be there. No one's fighting you over Dwight Freeney's services. So if there's a 25-year-old guy that you like, that you think has potential for the future, you're not cutting him and exposing him to the rest of the league in favor of 37-year-old Dwight Freeney. That's not what you do. You get rid of Dwight Freeney. You hold on to your 25-year-old prospect. And if somebody else gets injured or has to go on IR and you have a freed up roster spot, then you go and you pick up the old man Freeney and bring him back on board. So I don't think it's a situation where they're like, oh, we don't need Dwight Freeney. It's just like, hey, we're not cutting a guy that we like that's younger, that has more upside than Freeney at this point of his career just to keep him on the roster. We can cut Dwight loose. He'll be available if we need him. No one's going to go out and sign Dwight Freeney. He's been out there for this long for a reason. If we need him, he'll be there. So that's the thought process I think the Seahawks have. That's my rationale behind why they got rid of Freeney. But in any event, the Seahawks get the win on the road versus the 49ers, 24-13, get to 7-4 on the season. And like I said, the Seahawks are a team that could easily win the NFC West division. But if they don't win the NFC West, they could find themselves on the outside looking in. Remember, all it takes is for 1 or 2 teams on the outside of the playoff race to get hot and catch the Seattle Seahawks. Right now, if the playoffs started today, the Seahawks would not make it. So it would be in their best interest to make the playoffs. They've lost to too many teams that if they finish tied with, at the end of the day, they wouldn't own the tiebreaker. Like Washington, like Atlanta, for instance, like Green Bay, okay? They've lost to all of those teams at some point this season. And so head-to-head tiebreakers, not the friends of Seattle. So they must win the division if they want to ensure that they get in to the playoffs. So it'd be in their best interest to find a way to win the NFC West division so that they can comfortably secure a playoff berth at the end of the season. We'll see what happens, though. I am fascinated with this in the NFC South division as those races are going to come down to the wire at the end of this season. Can't wait. In any event, 49ers dropped to 1-10 on the season. Have a trip out to out to Chicago next week to take on the Bears. We'll see if Jimmy G gets the start there or if C.J. Beathard is okay after getting his ass whooped in this game against Seattle and not finishing. So Seahawks, huge matchup on Sunday Night Football at home versus the Eagles. That's going to be must-see TV because we're going to find out a lot about both teams in that game. Eagles haven't really played the stiffest of competition of late. This will be their first true test in quite some time, and it's not getting much easier for the Eagles. We're going to find out just how good the Eagles are over the next 3 weeks or so. So a big game on Sunday night for sure for both teams involved, Eagles and Seahawks. That's going to do it for your man Louie T, but don't you go anywhere. I've got some more games to break down. Next coming your way, Jags and Cards, but I got a lot to say about that Crabtree fight. I'm going to break it down to a science. I'm going to break that thing down to a T. So don't you go anywhere. We'll come with the Cards and Jags next, and then we'll get to the main event of the evening, which you all came to see. Crabs and L.A.B. Part 2. My grandmama gave me that chain. Second chain. We'll get to that and more here on Lockdown Coverage. I'll see you in a second. Don't you go anywhere.